Hello and welcome to the Paranormal TV Podcast, the podcast that asks the question, if Bigfoot is real, then why doesn't he have a Bigfoot fetish OnlyFans?
Oh dear, pretty much basic answer. Because it would make hella money if they were using Bigfoot on OnlyFans.
What would you follow it?
Not really. Not really a fan of feet, but I suppose if that's what you're into, then you go for that.
I wouldn't pay for it, but I would seek out the leaks online.
Yeah, for proof.
So what? Someone will have screenshotted it and put it somewhere on like Reddit or something.
Well, you're looking at a good turnover of a couple grand a month if you've got Bigfoot's feet on OnlyFans, haven't you?
A couple of grand a month. Some people are making tens of thousands of pounds a day.
Literally.
Doing that stuff. Bigfoot have been making billions.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Olivia Atwood. Absolutely loved her programme on it. Absolutely.
Yeah, Heather's been watching that as well.
I love it. It's one of my favourite programmes. Every time it comes out every year, I'm like, yes, it's back. I love it. So yeah, fantastic. Brilliant. Makes my year.
Okay, cool.
But on that matter, we are actually going to discuss Bigfoot tonight.
We are going to discuss Bigfoot.
So, Sean and myself watched an episode on a series called In Search of Monsters. And this specific episode was all about Bigfoot. Now, it was interesting. And
it was interesting.
yeah.
It was. What I will say is, I think we should scratch this series off our watch list because it wasn't. I found it to be more. This is going to be a very different episode to what I think people are sort of getting used to listening to so far, because this wasn't really an investigation. It wasn't an investigatory episode. It was, for me, more of a documentary.
Oh, defo.
So I would scratch this off the watch list for future episodes. I know there are other TV programs out there. I think there's a TV program called Expedition Bigfoot, where they literally go out and look for him, and they have cameras and stuff and actually look for him, which will probably be better for us to watch. But hey ho, we watched this one this week, and so it's the one. Yeah. It's the one that we're discussing.
It was extremely dramatic, in a word, actually. Dramatic, especially at the start. I mean, I know that was one of the key things of last one, but it was very dramatised from the minute it started. I thought, oh, here we go.
Well, straight away you've got, like, with this entire episode, there was two pieces of quote unquote physical evidence. You had the Patterson footage. This is literally my first note. I've just written the Patterson footage, but it wasn't even the full thing. It was just a photograph. It was just a still from the footage, which is a really famous piece of Bigfoot footage. Yeah. I don't know why they didn't. They didn't go more in depth into that at all. Well, they just showed one shot.
Literally, but then seconds into the episode, it was like, a lady driving home had something big running away from her car. And I was like, a bear.
A bear, yeah.
Because the way they would describe it, I'm sorry, if it was Bigfoot, I think you'd be, oh my God. But it was in the middle of somewhere that probably is known for having bears roaming or whatever. And I just thought, and then they just sort of ditched this evidence. The episode in itself would talk about something, then ditch it, and then never come back to it again. So there wasn't any follow-up information. With that, it was so random. It happened in the first 5 minutes, and then it was like, right, now onto the programme. It was just like, for drama's sake.
Yeah, I found that they had just, like, stories dotted through the episode. And I've said it before on this podcast, for me, anecdotes on proof of the paranormal. So just someone telling their story of, I was driving along the road and I saw Bigfoot at the side of the road as I was driving past, is not enough for me.
Absolutely not.
Like you said, it could have very easily been a bear. It could have been just a trick of the light or a hallucination, because I don't know if I've ever told you this story before. Several years ago, this was when the final Harry Potter book came out. My sister had not read any of the books, but she wanted to read the final book just because she wanted to know what happened in the end. She wanted to know who dies, how the story finishes. So she was like, I'm just going to read the last one. Fine. And we went on this camping holiday, and she was reading the book at the time, and she was like engrossed in it. And she decided one day, I'm going to go for a run. So she went for a run, and she's running through these woods. Where the campsite was, there was like this big woodland area around this big lake. She was like, I'm going to go for a run. So she went for this run, and then she came back like 10, 15 minutes later, and she was like white as a ghost. And we were like, oh my God, what's the matter? You look like you've seen a ghost. And she was like, I have just seen in the woods between two trees Voldemort.
And just literally like that, hadn't
She
watched
saw
the film,
she saw
really?
Voldemort
That's bizarre.
in the woods. Now, she didn't, because Voldemort isn't real. We know for a fact he is a work of fiction.
Yeah.
But because she had that in her head, and she'd been through a run, and but she was like, I am certain I've just seen him. We're like, you didn't, because he's not real. If you're driving through the Rockies or whatever, somewhere where Bigfoot, in the back of your mind, maybe Bigfoot is supposed to have been seen once or twice or a few times, then if you see a bear, or if you even see like a really weirdly shaped tree, you might just think it's Bigfoot.
Well, yeah. And if you're in a forest at 1 a.m. and you see a shadow of someone, you're going to go, oh my God, what the hell is that? Because your mind, like we talked with the paranormal in terms of ghosts, it does things to you. So, I mean, yeah. The program obviously went on. It was just, a lot of it was just talking about Bigfoot, and they were interesting talking about how pop culture is what's kept the myth alive, which it is, because, Bigfoot has been used in kids' cartoon programs, probably like Scooby-Doo. It's been used in films. It's been used for merchandise. It has been used and used to death, that you could give birth tomorrow and your child in a year's time would know about Bigfoot. Do you know what I mean? It's something that will never die. It's like the Loch Ness Monster. Everybody knows about it, but nobody knows why they know about it. They just do. Because it is something that everybody's talked about forever. It's never something that's ever stopped being acknowledged or as a myth. And I think that is the biggest thing with Bigfoot. It is probably one of the most spoken about mythological creatures to exist.
Or not exist.
Or not exist. But you know what I mean.
Because, well, like you just touched on there, it's the whole, it's the pop culture thing. It's the popularization of it. And, the reason it's never gone away is because everybody leans into it. It's the same with same with Nessie. If you go to Loch Ness in Scotland, I've been to Loch Ness.
Yeah.
There is Loch Ness Monster merchandise everywhere. There are shops, entire shops dedicated only to the Loch Ness Monster. They have monetized it so much. And I actually wrote in, as part of my notes in this, because they were talking, they went to a destination called Willow Creek.
Yes.
And they said Willow Creek is now known as Bigfoot Country. And so, they're getting that monetary gain. So, of course, they're going to lean into it. They've got the Bigfoot Steakhouse, the Bigfoot Museum, the Bigfoot Motel. They had a sign that said, come and eat a Bigfoot burger.
Yeah.
At the fast food restaurant. It's constantly there in people's, this whole psychological thing of, what's it called in advertising, subliminal messaging.
Yeah.
If you're driving through Willow Creek, or a town like Willow Creek, because I'm assuming there are probably hundreds of towns in America that also lean into this and do something very similar. They do the same in West Virginia for Mothman. They have a Mothman festival every year. Even if you're just driving through, those subliminal messages are there. You see the billboard with Bigfoot on. You see the fast food restaurant. You see the museum. You see, the motel. And then you drive, 30 minutes down the road, and you're now in a woodland area. You see something out the corner of your eye. Even if you weren't conscious that you were thinking about Bigfoot, you were thinking about Bigfoot, because Bigfoot was there in the back of your mind.
My biggest argument is, let's be honest, if a mythical creature, Bigfoot, which people describe as really tall, aggressive, why would he run away, or they run away if they saw a human? Surely they describe Bigfoot as aggressive and violent. Why on earth would he not come forward and face a human? Because the difference between Bigfoot and a human, from the way they describe him, is incredibly significant. Because if they think these footprints are real, a creature with feet that size is not going to be your average Joe height of a human.
Yeah.
Or the strength, you know, because they went on to talk about in October, I think it was 1958, they found the footprints that were human-like, but obviously a lot longer, found by construction workers. Now, the thing is, this is...
Sorry, the way you just did that sigh just then, it looks like you're so done already with Bigfoot.
No. So the thing is...
We are about 10 minutes into this episode and you are like... Oh, God.
No, right, I was looking at these footprints, right? And I was like, I'm just going to let them, you know, talk about it. The thing is, they didn't talk about DNA. They said, they used the... that was in another part of the episode where they took DNA from the lake to show where he'd passed. But there is never, ever, ever any significant evidence about DNA. Because if you're going to make a programme about finding mythical creatures, give me some DNA. Or try and act like you found something. Because what they did almost was stab themselves in the foot, pardon the pun, by saying that the difference between a chimpanzee and a human is 2%. And they found human DNA in this Bigfoot trace. So all you're telling me there is it was some form of ape origin because it had the same 2% difference as a human.
Yeah.
Because that was my... I couldn't switch off from that because I kept thinking, well, okay, so if Bigfoot exists, then he is not going to have the same DNA as a human or an ape. No way. Not that close. Not that close at all. Because it's like the dinosaurs.
Lots of people do believe he's like the missing link, don't they? Like he is the link between modern day primates and humans, and they think he is the missing link, the 2% or whatever it is.
Well, the conversation that led to was that we are the aliens and Bigfoot is the origin of Earth.
Yeah, you are thrashing through this episode.
I have lots of notes. Honestly.
I'll be honest with you. My note on the alien theory, I just wrote Bigfoot alien theory can fuck off.
Well, I'm sorry. How are we... Right, apes, okay, have walked the earth for years and years. We have... Is it ascended or descended? Descended from apes, haven't we? And that has been proven.
Evolution.
Yeah, it's been proved that we evolved from apes.
Many people do still, debate it today, but it's there. The evidence is there.
But tell me, right, how Bigfoot was roaming the earth and somebody plonked a human on Earth. That is basically what that evidence is trying to say, and it's ridiculous. I understand it.
It's conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason.
It is insane. It is insane. It's just it's like we're trying, and I understand it's so hard because it's the same with the paranormal. We are trying so hard to find evidence all these things exist. I'm just fine with it. I don't know. I just wish someone out there one day finds something and we go, oh my gosh, he's real.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because for how many years would you say people have been researching Bigfoot, like officially?
Officially, well, the Patterson footage was 1960s. The earliest cast mould of the footprint was 1950s. So I can imagine sightings have probably been since before then, maybe late 1800s. I don't know. However, they did talk about indigenous people as well having seen it. So you're talking thousands of years back.
Yeah, because
But in that space of time, the stories could be tainted, or at least the translations or the hand-me-downs of stories can be tainted. So it might not be the exact same stories that are being told today of the indigenous people as to what they actually meant at the time.
No.
You get what I mean?
Well, it's like old wives' tales. They get adapted and changed and made more dramatic as time goes on, don't they?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, what I did find interesting was that they said that potentially this creature has buried itself under the ground.
Yeah,
and the only thing I had to think about that was, yes, you're staying hidden, but again, the kind of creature Bigfoot is, if, you know, the way they're describing him quite ape-like, there's no way they'd survive and breathe underground.
Well, if there was some kind of like, because we humans go underground. We have we have like the London Underground and the New York subway and stuff like that. I think when they said they went underground, I don't think they meant like I don't think they meant they buried themselves under the ground.
No, it's to stay hidden in a home.
Yeah, so that would mean like a tunnel system.
Yeah, but they wouldn't be ventilated with air holes.
No, but neither are caves, really. And people go like spelunking and stuff, don't they?
I suppose.
But because I, in one sense, and I've spoken to you about this before. I can subscribe to the idea that Bigfoot might exist as just a creature, not a paranormal creature, not a magical creature, not an alien, but just a creature that hasn't been officially seen yet. One woman said something in the episode, and I do agree with this. She said, and I've written this down in handwriting, I should have typed it, I cannot read my own handwriting. She said, "We tend to assume that we have explored all the places on our planet, that between the satellites and Google Earth and all our modern technology, that we've seen every square inch of our planet. And the reality is that we absolutely haven't." And I 100% agree with the woman who said that. Does that mean I believe in Bigfoot? No. Does it mean I could subscribe to the idea of Bigfoot existing? Potentially. But then my next note was, there is absolutely no way that a creature like Bigfoot is burying its dead. Because that was one thing that they said, is that the reason we haven't seen that much of it, or there are only sort of sporadic sightings, is because when they die, they bury their dead. They have like funeral ceremonies and they're burying them in the ground. But at the same time, even if that was happening, paleontological digs are still happening all the time, all over the world. So why is no one digging up a Bigfoot?
That's what I'm saying. If one had passed away, because this links me to my point actually about, they called them the redhead beasts, and they think this was a maybe connection to Bigfoot or something, and they were cannibals that were living in caves because they found lots of remains that all have bone marrow on them, which is indication that
like fecal remains.
Yeah, so they were eaten because the bone marrow was still visible. Now, the thing is, I 100% believe that there probably was creatures that have become extinct in thousands of years, but I understand when you're looking so hard for evidence to find something that connects them, because they would be the closest thing to a Bigfoot, because their behaviour patterns and obviously eating anything, human, animal, whatever, would be the behaviour of a Bigfoot, because at the end of the day, it's like the dinosaurs. They wouldn't go, "Oh, sorry, you're human, I won't eat you." They would. If they came back today, they would eat us all. They would eat us all. So
if you're face to face with a lion and it's hungry, it's going to eat you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why when they were talking about this, I was like, you're now giving me more evidence to think it's not real, because all these people that have cited Bigfoot, you've linked it back to these redhead cannibals that lived amongst the earth one day and said that they ate humans and animals. But then these people that have spotted Bigfoot claim they have seen, the shadow of him in the woods. I just think, well, why? How are you still alive then? Because I I don't think if I saw Bigfoot that I would be here today, because I'd be dead. Because one, I imagine the way Bigfoot is presented, and I imagine it would be, is a huge creature. And I'd be like, see ya.
Yeah, well, some people are saying he's like 15 feet tall.
So, like, them sort of bits of evidence almost then push me further away, because I'm thinking, well, you're explaining a real horrible creature here that we would see, and he wouldn't hide. I think we'd see them plodding around.
Yeah, I don't see any reason for a creature like that to hide. If they are real, I don't think that, and I think that's the reason why I said about burying the dead.
Yeah.
I can't subscribe to that at all. They wouldn't consciously hide from humans.
No.
Obviously, the reason some people gave that explanation is because supposedly we, the humans, are the alien race that came down, took over Earth, and then basically drove them underground. That's bullshit. That's not real. That's something I will never ever agree with.
Because there was that part in the episode as well that got so dramatic, right? And it was like firefighters were called out to a hairy creature in the woods, right? And then they claim that the FBI took this creature away. Now, nobody saw the FBI take the creature. They just assumed the FBI took the creature. Now, I can guarantee, I know the FBI can be shady, but if they had captured Bigfoot, there is no way that would not be in the news, that they would not have said, we have found Bigfoot, he exists, this is the evidence, here he is. I know people say that they like to hide, and they talk about Area 51, don't they? And nobody really knows what's there,
but Area 51 that's shrouded in secrecy anyway. I can understand why people get on their, conspiracy theory high horse about Area 51, but the Federal Bureau of Investigation is way too important. I'm not saying Area 51 isn't important, but there is always that secrecy. There's always been that secrecy around it. But the FBI, very literally, like you say, it's not within their remit to go around picking up a bit. If they'd have said an MIB turned up, like one of the Men in Black turned up and swept it away and took it to Area 51, then I'd be like, okay, maybe that's weird. But the fact that they said the FBI, I think, was just that was, as much as we say we're not allowed to say things are a hoax on this. I think that was probably a fabricated story.
Yes, I think some of it was backed up I think they've made this program brilliant. It's great. But they clearly were struggling for evidence to back things up. I think they had evidence there, and they had walkers and people that had claimed to have spotted Bigfoot. But there was no, right, this is some hard evidence now, because nobody has got any.
No, but that's the thing, is there is evidence out there.
Yeah.
I've seen videos. You've seen videos. We have shared a video today on our TikTok, that you've presented of Bigfoot sighted. People are constantly videoing Bigfoot in quotation marks. There are so many videos out there. There are so many footprint sightings, but this TV program was just lacking all of it. They spoke to some people that claim to have seen him. Okay, cool. Well done, you've got a story. They spoke to a couple of quote-unquote experts. I did write down at one point, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, PhD, Professor of Anthropology at the Idaho State University, has 300 plus footprint casts, and says that there is a remarkable and compelling body of evidence that there really is a species of creature as yet unrecognized by science living in North America, right? And I wrote that down as something that I was like, okay, yeah, that's maybe something we can hang on to. You are a doctor, you've got a PhD, you know, you're a doctor of anthropology, you know what you're talking about. But then he said what he said, but he didn't back it up with anything. He said, yeah, I've got 300 foot casts. Where are they? Show us.
Yeah.
He didn't show us anything. You say that there's remarkable and compelling evidence. Well, what is that remarkable and compelling evidence? All you've said is that it's remarkable and it's compelling. You haven't said what it is or where it is. Is it DNA? Because we would have loved to have seen some DNA, like you said.
Yeah.
And the only DNA that we did see was DNA from a river.
Yeah, that picked up human DNA.
Well, it picked up, I think I wrote it down somewhere, the DNA. Fish, birds, deer, dogs, human, and one human-like unknown species.
Yeah, which it could have been anything.
Yeah, and I've just put, showing my ignorance here, but could it be possible that in the running water, some of the human DNA has run together with some other DNA, i.e. deer, to make it near human, but not quite. Yeah. So, again, like I said, showing my ignorance. I'm not a biologist. I don't know how DNA works properly. But is it possible for, while it's been in the water, some DNA has combined?
It likely, isn't it? Because it's...
I don't know. I could be sounding really stupid now. But could the human DNA and deer DNA have fused in a sense in the water, in this running water? Because as well, there's such a tainted area. Running water, where's the water come from? It's got water in a river or a stream. Water has a start point and an end point. You don't know where it's been. You don't know what's been in there. It could have come from an area where a chimpanzee has been in it.
Well, that's what they were saying. And
that's the near human DNA. The
DNA was the same difference in human to animal as it is for a human to a chimpanzee. So that's why I was like, well, I don't know if chimpanzees freely roam around there, but you never know.
Yeah.
So there was
the one point that they did touch on. And it's a point that they bring up in Loch Ness case, is that it could be an animal that has existed, thought to have gone extinct, and it turns out is still knocking about. It has happened. Real life cases of animals going extinct and then being seen again years later is a real thing that has happened. It's one of the things that they think Loch Ness might be. Loch Ness might be a plesiosaur, which is a water-dwelling dinosaur with a long neck and flippers. Could Bigfoot be Gigantopithecus? Is one of the questions that was asked on the show. Gigantopithecus was an orangutan-like animal which lived thousands of years ago. I don't know. I'd have to look it up, but I can't in this, at this very moment in time. Did Gigantopithecus and sort of Homo sapiens, early humans, did they overlap? Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head personally. That is a theory that for me holds more.
Oh yeah, I agree.
That holds more than like the
they presented
the alien theory.
They presented the dragon tooth, which is from one of these apes that they think has become extinct. So that was the only thing that I was like, well, there's evidence there, and the mouth of this was massive,
Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, okay.
Gigantopithecus was a huge creature. The reason it's called Gigantopithecus, it was gigantic.
So I can see that, and that's why they said this could be an ancestor of Bigfoot. And I was like, okay, yeah, all right, because there was DNA evidence, a skull that you could see, and you're like, okay, fair enough. That is a very large creature.
Yeah, because they had the elongated skulls that they were showing. I can't remember exactly what that entailed, that section. I've just written in my notes, elongated skulls. And I can't remember if they were human skulls that were found to be elongated, or if they were skulls that they found from animals that they can't identify.
So they said that parts of the skulls were not there, and
Of course.
these large head skulls were first painted because people thought that's what Bigfoot looked like, and then they did actually find these skulls that resembled this sort of impression of Bigfoot. So they were found afterwards, which you could, say, okay. But they did look like they had been discovered, and the shape of the skull was very long and odd shaped. For
It was, yeah, and it's actually coming back to me now. But it had 2 lines, was it? Or
yes.
there should be 2 lines on a human skull from the are they called breech lines or something, where the skull heals itself.
Yeah.
But this one only had 1 line, which they said meant that it couldn't have been a human skull.
No. And that's what they were saying, that parts of the skull were not there that could make it human.
Yeah. So then my question to that then would be, well, why couldn't it have just been another primate? Just, off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Or why couldn't it have been a Gigantopithecus?
Well, exactly, because when they first started bringing it out, I thought, that must be part of the skull, and they were like, no, this is not, this is separate. Because I thought, it must be, that's what they must have looked like, because when they were saying it's an ancestor from Bigfoot, I thought, okay. But it sort of was like, we found something, but we're not sure what it is. So, yet again, I was waiting for more information.
Yeah, I found the whole program, and this is nothing against the production of the TV show or anything like that. I wanted it to be what we're used to seeing, which is a team of people go looking for something and try and capture the evidence, and it just wasn't that. It was just, we hear people's stories. They tell us their stories of when they've supposedly seen him, and we're going to tell you about the history of Bigfoot and some theories as to how and why he might be here.
Yeah.
I just think they could have included so much more.
If you were to ask me, based on this program alone, has it changed my view on the existence of Bigfoot? My answer is no.
I would completely agree with you.
My answer is no. I just wanted to see more footage, which I know is out there because recently I have looked for it. And, whether it's real or not, if I was trying to make it right, he's real, I'd have got it in. I'd have found different points. I'd have been like, let's just show it and see what people think of it. That was my biggest thing with it. Yeah.
And I find I'm a bit hard pushed to ask you this. But we do it every single episode. Obviously, we've both already come down on our conclusion of we don't believe there's enough evidence in this episode for us to believe that he is real. That's because there was no evidence. So here's a difficult question for you, Chloe. What was the most compelling piece of evidence?
Well, the thing is, the only thing that was physically possible was the skull of the dragon tooth. Because it was the only physical piece of evidence. Yes, there were footprints, but I did put could be made with a giant sandal.
Oh my god! Did you wait? You've just reminded me. They found sandals.
Yeah, in the cave. I forgot about that. Yeah, large sandals found in Lovestock Cave. Oh yeah.
So yeah, I forgot
about that.
My note on that was, do I believe that Bigfoot was making sandals 2,000 years ago in a cave or whatever, or even recently in a cave? No, I don't. Do I believe, because they brought the samples out, they were, to be fair, a piece of evidence. I can't believe you just reminded me of this just by saying that. They were a piece of evidence that they did bring out, but I will say a piece of dreadful evidence.
Horrific.
It was just a mangled mash of reeds.
Yeah, well.
And then someone looked at that and went,
That's
a Bigfoot sandal, that is. That's a Bigfoot sandal. No, I can't believe that was one of the pieces of evidence. Wow. In a show that lacked so much evidence, one of the minor little things that they did think to include was that absolute pile of dog shit. For my best piece of evidence, I'm gonna say, because I wrote it when I was writing it down, I was thinking to myself, okay, fair enough. It was the and I know I say that anecdotal evidence is no evidence, but at the end of the day, you have anecdotal evidence from Dave, the lumberjack who was driving down the road after a 22-hour shift through Bigfoot country, and then you have Jeff, the doctor, who is a doctor of anthropology. So I think what he said was quite compelling, and I could listen to it. Like, if he sat and spoke to me and explained everything and talked me through his evidence and the reasons behind what he was saying, and all of these 300 plus footprints that he's got, if I sat down with him and he showed me everything, then I might have been able to be swayed to potentially believe after he said what he said. So I'm putting that as my best piece of evidence.
Yeah, fair enough.
What is your worst piece of evidence?
I mean, this is a really, really hard question today, actually. Could I say all of it? I have a few, which is
Happy to hear them.
The footprints. Yeah, right, they're footprints, but no DNA was taken from them.
The one thing I will say about the footprints, and I'm not just trying to, poo-poo your what you're saying, or like shit on your bonfire or anything, with your worst piece of evidence. But one thing that they did say is that the way the indentations happened, you could see where like the ball of the foot would go in, if you know what I mean. So like the toes. So it wasn't something that could have been hoaxed with like creating a big flat shoe with the imprint of a foot on the bottom of it. They were saying that a footprint like that couldn't have been replicated, couldn't have replicated what they found, because what they found was what would happen if, because obviously they've been documenting this for years and years and years, is how the anatomy of a human foot displaces mud on the foot, if you know what I mean. So you can see where the heel would go in, and then the arch of the foot, and then how the ball of the foot would go further in as you take your step. And they said that they could see that within these within these footprints. So that was just something that I thought. But that's the reason, I think, why I didn't include the footprints in my worst piece of evidence.
Well, my reason for that is because none of us saw the footprint happen, and none of us know that someone genuinely is that fixated on Bigfoot. They didn't create something to
in the 1950s
imprint into the ground. You don't know.
Well, yeah, to be fair,
you don't know, because it could have been something, but I don't know until I physically see something. I mean, you could argue that we've never seen a dinosaur, but we do find bones. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's different, because we have seen dinosaurs, because we do dig their bones up, and we
that's what I mean.
We are able
There's evidence of that.
Able to recreate them from the bones.
And we see. It's hard, isn't it? Because it's like, you could say that some things are bad and good pieces of evidence, because my actual answer for what's the worst piece of evidence is the whole program could have given me lots of good pieces of evidence, but they had no scientific backing on any of it. And that's my argument. They all the way through I thought, oh, okay, and then it'd be like, oh. So actually, what I'm going to say tonight is I'm not going to pinpoint one or two things, because I actually can't, as worst pieces of evidence. I just think the whole show in general was a worst piece of evidence, because they just didn't give us enough information, and that's all, really. It's just a shame.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. Like, you have the evidence available to you, but you didn't share it with us.
No.
So that in itself is a shit piece of evidence.
Yeah, and that's my response.
I like that, and if I was a different type of person, I would have probably stolen it from you.
Yes.
For me, the worst piece of evidence.
It's really hard.
It is. I'm trying to even. I'm just looking through now and just seeing if there's anything else in my notes that I've forgotten to even bring up. Like, because it wasn't until you mentioned sandals that I was like, oh, shit.
I think that was literally
found sandals.
The whole episode.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to go with the sandals because the sandals were actually a piece of evidence, and it was a dreadful piece of evidence. Like. And they got like the plaster cast of the foot out, and they put it up against this like mush of reeds, and they were like, look, it's the same size and shape. And I'm like, okay, but why aren't there more of these things then? If they were like mass producing these sandals, or if they're even intelligent enough to make their own clothing. If they're intelligent enough to make their own clothing, why aren't we seeing Bigfoot hats? Why aren't we seeing Bigfoot jackets? Why aren't we seeing Bigfoot, long johns? And how wonderfully ironic is it that the creature called Bigfoot has only one piece of clothing, and it's a piece of clothing that goes on its feet.
A shoe. And then all the evidence of footprints is a barefoot.
I don't know if they would be bare feet, because they are human, like bear prints are well documented in science. And it's either a Bigfoot footprint or a hoax footprint. I don't think it could be mistaken for a bear print.
No, I said if they had sandals, why are all the footprints bare feet?
Oh,
not as in bears.
I completely misunderstood.
I was thinking, I was like, do you know where you're going with this? So if you
because we've discussed so many times about how Bigfoot could just be a bear, and people are misrepresenting that.
All the footprints that have been found are just a foot. So like
bare feet, B-A-R-E.
Yeah,
okay.
There. So,
I completely misunderstood that. I do apologise.
I think that this episode was interesting. It's just lacked evidence, and unfortunately has not changed my view on the existence of Bigfoot.
That's fair. That's completely fair. And so we've both come down on no, Bigfoot is not real. Nope. If you are taking the evidence from this TV show.
Yes.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
Yes, thank you for joining us this week.
And that just means now we go straight into the shout-outs for today's episode. And the shout-outs are for anyone who commented on the Aaron Goodwin video. I did share a video of Aaron Goodwin on TikTok. Asked for wrong answers only. Fortunately, on that one, only one person said Aaron Goodwin, and I do think they were being facetious. So there's that, which we didn't have with the previous videos, where people literally said the person's real name. You need to follow instructions, guys, if you're going to get this right, if you're going to get shout-outs. There weren't that many comments on this one, so I didn't have that many to go off. So if you did get a shout-out, well done, but also you were kind of like the bottom of the barrel.
That's not many this week.
Either way. So apologies, but yeah, we love you all anyway. So the first shout out goes to Shannon Jenkinson, whose comment said this. I actually really like this. I was going to put Sir Wrongly Answer Only the Third. However, I do believe it's 1000% Nick Groff.
It's funny.
So Shannon Jenkins, thank you for that. Mariska wrote Dakota Layden. Dakota Layden, for those people who don't know, is the lead investigator and the sort of head of Destination Fear and that whole crew. The only show so far on this podcast to have got a double yes. Third shout out goes to Pixel Gamer, who said Mike Wazowski, of course. Big fan of Pixar in this household, so I did appreciate that. Always a win. And I think I actually replied to that comment as well and said something like, oh, but the thing is Aaron Goodwin is a ghost hunter, not a monster hunter. I thought that fit in quite nicely. Daughter of Lilith, shout out goes to you for writing My Newspaper Delivery Man. And it did make me wonder, did Aaron Goodwin get a job as a delivery man during COVID when he couldn't make Ghost Adventures?
He probably could. We got to do what we had to do.
We had to do what we had to do. I had two friends. One went on to deliver for Hermes, which is now called Every. and the other one went on to deliver for Amazon. They both work in the West End. That's their day jobs. One is an actor and one is a musical director. And the final shout out goes to friend of the podcast, friend of ours. Do you know who this is going to be?
No, I'm intrigued. Who's it going to be?
We have both done musicals with her, and she has her own TikTok page.
Is it Danny?
It's Danny.
Yeah.
Danielle_BookTok commented, oh, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of this, because I love Disney, but I've not really seen Hercules that many times, but she put Philoctetes, which is Phil from Hercules. Is that the part that Danny DeVito plays?
Yeah, it is. Don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, sensational.
That's a good one.
Go and follow Danny. She got me back into reading again after doing our last show together. So thank you everyone for your comments. That is the shout outs done. I'll be putting another video out shortly because I've just realised as well, I don't know when we're going to be recording again, but I need to do another video for people to comment to get a shout out on that podcast. If you've got any of your own personal paranormal stories that you want us to review, obviously I as a skeptic and Chloe as a believer will look at your stories, we'll discuss your stories, and we'll give our verdicts on what we think is really going on there. Send them to paranormaltvpod@gmail.com. Or if you've just got any comments on the podcast itself or any comments on the show that we watched today, that is In Search of Monsters, Season 1, Episode 8 on Bigfoot. Do you agree with what we said? Do you disagree with what we said? Do you think that it was an abundance of evidence as opposed to what we were saying where there was no evidence? Do let us know. You can find us on social media. That's TikTok and Instagram @ParaTVPod. Also, I've never said this before on the podcast, but one of the easiest and best ways that you can support us is by giving us a 5-star review, whichever podcasting app you're listening on. That will boost us up the charts and means more people will hear us and hopefully start listening. And that, I think, is everything in terms of housekeeping. And so all that is left to do now is have Chloe give us our outro. Chloe, over to you.
Well, all I'm going to say is tonight's been interesting. I've really struggled this week to find an outro. But make sure you have a wonderful week and don't get off on the wrong foot. And thank you for listening.